Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Adam Giancarlo, LCSWR. And tonight's training is on utilizing and making the most out of my outcomes, which as we go through this training, you will learn that it is one of the software programs that we can use to track and report outcomes when it comes to our clinical work, which we've been talking about the last couple of weeks, as far as soliciting feedback from our clients to increase clinical effectiveness and improve the therapeutic alliance and relationship. So what I'm hoping we get out of tonight is not necessarily just about my outcomes, the program itself, but also about how we want to solicit feedback routinely and formally on a regular basis with our clients in order to improve clinical effectiveness, and then ways that we can track and report outcomes and interpret some of the statistics and some of the quantitative data that we receive from using the scales that we've been talking about, the ORS and the SRS. So I'm a certified feedback informed treatment trainer. Those of you, you've all been with us the last couple of weeks. So here's my information, and if anybody needs to get a hold of me, they know where to go, how to get in touch with me. And as I've done in previous trainings, if you have questions, comments, thoughts, definitely just say, "Excuse me, Adam," and pipe right in, don't hesitate. And we can, address any questions or comments and things like that as we go. But there will definitely be time for questions, comments, concerns, discussion, and whatnot at the end, but as well as throughout. So it's kind of informal as far as that goes. So a brief description of tonight's training is that it'll introduce us to a computer software program that utilizes the outcome rating scale and the session rating scale electronically. We've been talking about these scales. It creates a system for scoring and tracking client outcomes and progress in treatment. It creates a system for gauging client satisfaction with services. So we want to know, if our clients are satisfied, and, if so, how much, and if not, what do we need to do to change that? This training will help familiarize us with the interface of the program and show us the functions of the program. So some of the functions of the program include the ability to store your client caseload and then chart, score, and rate results of the ORS and SRS for each session. So best practices, like we talked about last week, is to administer the ORS and the SRS at each session, the ORS in the beginning, SRS at the end. Practically speaking, I know sometimes that, doesn't happen or can't happen for one reason or another, but whatever we can do to try to administer these scales routinely and formally on a regular basis, preferably and ideally at each session, and then graphing the progress of each client at each session, and tabulating provider statistics regarding our effectiveness as clinicians. So that's based on evaluations in regard to the SRS scores and then the improvements in the ORS scores. So some of the learning objectives tonight are to know and understand what my outcomes is and the reasons why we could potentially benefit from utilizing it in our daily practices. We'll be familiar with the basic functions of my outcomes and have a cursory understanding of how to navigate the program. And then we will learn about a new and different system for evaluating, assessing, engaging our clients' progress in treatment and our effectiveness as clinicians. So again, it's about routinely and formally soliciting feedback, tracking and reporting outcomes. So besides utilizing something like my outcomes, there are some other methods of tracking and reporting outcomes after using or while using the ORS and SRS. So we can transfer ratings and scores from the ORS and SRS for each session to an Excel spreadsheet, and we can graph the results. One of the advantages to this is that it provides some quantifiable data and to measure and track outcomes throughout the course of therapy, to gauge and chart the quality of the therapeutic alliance and relationship throughout the course of therapy. And it provides a visual image of clinical progress. So I'll show you some of the things that I used to do before I got into my outcomes, which was, let's see. Apologize for the slowness, but this is a, well, let me see here. Okay. This is a graph of a child that I had seen just for 2 sessions. And this was at a domestic violence shelter. This is a CORS, the child scale. So outcome rating scale and the child's session rating scale. So I have the session numbers, the dates, and the scores as I tabulated them from the paper scales. So I put in the numbers and we could see that things went down quite a bit with family from session 1 to session 2. And also with the session rating scale, the client didn't like what we did in the second session. So we can see that things didn't move in the right direction. Now, I didn't end up seeing this client for more than the 2 sessions, but if I had seen this client for a 3rd session, we definitely would have talked about what we wanted to do that was different, that would be different from the 2nd session, and also check in on the family, what's been going on with the family, how have you been doing, how have things been going with the family, and what needs to happen to improve things as far as the family area goes. So that was one of the charts that I made for one of my clients. And then there was another client who, this is a parent, this is an adult, and she was at the domestic violence shelter as well. It was for adults and for women and their children. And so I administered the ORS with her on how she was doing in these different life areas and charted the results. And so she struggled as well. And you can see that she struggled as time went on, and things started to get a little bit better towards the 5th session, but then she left. So this was a short-term facility, and so really there weren't too many sessions that I had with these clients. So we had to do what we could within the brief period that they were in the facility. So, and what the statistics show is that most of the change that occurs for clients happens within the first 3 to 5 sessions, 3 to 6 sessions or so. So, you know, we want to strike while the iron is hot as far as taking a look at the data. Now, she was fairly satisfied with the services, at least for a couple of the sessions out of the 4. There were a few where she wasn't completely satisfied, so we had a discussion about what could have been better, what we could have covered, and you know what she was getting out of the sessions. Let's see here. So this was definitely old school. So I don't know if anybody is, into Excel and stuff like that, but there's a lot that you can do as far as with the ORS and the SRS. So this is a child again, and just taking a look at where things are at in different life areas for this client. This client was pretty satisfied with the services that we were that I was doing with him, and things started getting quite a bit better, then kind of leveled out. But remember, this is out of 40. The totals are out of 40, so 10 for each dimension. And then last but not least, I'll show you another graph that I did. Let's see here. So this was a mother, again, how she was doing in her own life, and things were going pretty well, very well actually, after the first few sessions. And she was very satisfied with services, 40s across the board. And then I had her rate how things were going for her child, how she felt that things were going for her child. So this was, these are each out of 10, and then out of 40, the total. So she felt like in the beginning, things were not going well family-wise for her son. They started to steadily they started getting better after the first session, and then things got a lot better in the family as we progressed. in treatment. And then there was a dip with school, but then things got a lot better. And there was a parallel there between things getting better for her and things getting better for her child, for her son as well. So that was kind of interesting to see. But so that's the old school sort of model as far as tracking and reporting outcomes. And it can be time consuming. So that's one of the drawbacks as far as that goes. But it's nice to have that visual, and it's nice to be able to see and have some quantifiable data and everything when it comes to all that. So that's one other method of tracking and reporting outcomes when you're using the ORS and the SRS. So if we don't want to go old school, we want to go, more modern. There are other currently available software systems for administering and scoring the ORS and the SRS. There's Fit Outcomes, which it's a web-based outcome management system. It uses the latest algorithms for administering, scoring, and interpreting the ORS and the SRS. It's available in different languages. It's compliant with the General Data Protection Regulation. And Scott Miller says it's the most intuitive system available. There's more information on fitoutcomes.com. It's possible it allows instant feedback. It allows you to use the system for ongoing quality assurance of the services delivered and ongoing treatment adjustment to ensure the maximum benefit of treatment, just like My Outcomes and any other of these reporting systems, tracking reporting systems like OpenFit. It's a complete outcome measurement solution that's easy to use with powerful integration and reporting functionality. It's GDPR and HIPAA compliant. It's got a full application programming interface that allows agencies to push data into OpenFit and query data into their own client record and analysis systems. So this might be good for administrators at different agencies, a complete training and implementation framework, and it supports improved outcomes with flexible in-person and telehealth engagement management solutions. So there are different advantages to OpenFit as well. And then there's Pragmatic Tracker, which it's simple, flexible, adaptive. It facilitates our ability, first and foremost, to have conversations with our clients, to simply ask how they're progressing and ask about their priorities. So I don't know as much about Fit Outcomes, OpenFit, or Pragmatic Tracker as I do My Outcomes, but these are all recommended by Scott Miller, the developer of the ORS and the SRS and feedback-informed treatment. So the history of My Outcomes is that for over 20 years now, My Outcomes for Mental Well-Being Incorporated has been dedicated to developing innovations in applied behavioral sciences. They pioneered the use of intuitive multimedia technology for e-learning, Web 2.0 social groups, advanced reporting metrics, and other tools designed to enhance health sciences. So they're all about clinical effectiveness, improving outcomes for clients, making sure that progress is being made throughout the clinical landscape. And then in 2008, they pioneered the first web-based version of the ORS and the SRS. So for use in the monitoring and reporting of behavioral health care services. They were driven by the belief that mental health practitioners need innovative and practical solutions to help them provide superior care to their clients. So they're about, again, wanting to improve things to the best extent that we can for our clients over time within the therapeutic relationship. So it was developed to arm practitioners with a valid and reliable tool with a demonstrated ability to, like we've talked about in the last couple of weeks, strengthen client engagement in the clinical setting, increase the number of successful outcomes, reduce early dropout, reduce deterioration, reduce no-show rates and cancellation rates. And today, My Outcomes is successfully implemented in a wide variety of service settings with diverse clinical populations all over the world. So an international client base. It includes divisions of the US military, government-funded agencies, some of the world's largest behavioral health organizations. So one of the local agencies that utilized it for years previously was Spectrum Human Services. When I was there, we used it for many years to report to Oasis as far as our outcomes with our clients and whatnot. So it was one of those systems that was recognized by Oasis as being credible as far as reporting outcomes. So the science of My Outcomes with the ORS, what we've talked about is that the ORS measures the client's perspective of change or improvement or lack thereof in relation to where they started. So, and it's a valid, reliable, and feasible tool, and it's an evidence-based practice. So with My Outcomes, it takes less than a minute to administer the ORS. The results can then be compared to a predicted score derived from calculations based on data from almost 750,000 other administrations. So it automatically plots each session's ORS on a continuous graph so that the therapist can determine if the trajectory of change is on or off track. So it's just very efficient and user-friendly and scientific as well. So part of the science as far as My Outcomes with the SRS is that the SRS, like we've talked about, measures the quality of the therapeutic alliance and relationship. It's also valid, reliable, and feasible. It's also an evidence-based practice, again, recognized by Oasis, OMH, and SAMHSA, based upon the individual item scores and the composite score of these measures. The therapist can determine whether the alliance is threatened. And if so, the therapist is able to devote time to explore issues that will strengthen the relationship, like shifting goals or changing approach and so on. So to take a look at some of the interface as far as My Outcomes itself, it's very, like I said, user-friendly, easy to create a new client on your caseload. So you would just go to like the right panel and create client. You put your client user ID in, you would select the client's month and year of their birth, and then you could add in their gender or their age, but then you just click create client, and then when notified that you've successfully saved the user, you'll click OK, and you've created a client. It's that quick. So let me show you about setting up and administering the scales. So you can access your client scales from the left panel with the P, that's provider, and the G, and that's group, or from the right panel of your home page. You can click on the client themselves. On the left panel, if you click on the triangle to the left, well, it's kind of like an L, or no, the triangle to the left of the G, your client IDs, they'll be displayed. You can select them from there, or you can scroll through your right panel, and that displays client IDs in increments of 50 or 100 per page. And you would click on the client ID, and with new clients on the screen, it'll say begin by completing the ORS first, and then you would click ORS. The scales will appear on the screen. So we are familiar with these scales here, the ORS. At the beginning of the session, we explain about the ORS to the client, how we'd be interested in knowing how they're doing in the various domains, individually, interpersonally, socially, overall. And then we would have the client click on each of these domains, the domain continuum lines, where they would rate things are going in these life areas right now, or since they decided to seek counseling, if this is the first session, or since the last session, as we move forward. And once they've clicked on each of the different domains or life areas, we would have a discussion about the reasons for why they rated things the way that they did. And then, you would ask, what things could happen that would lead you to click further to the right in this area. So, family, what could go better with family? Socially, what could, improve as far as socially? What's going on with work or school that, could improve? So those are some sort of good solution-focused questions to ask to get the client to, like we talked about last week, envision the kinds of changes they would like to see and articulate them. So creating that image and that picture of where things are at once they start to achieve their goals or once they have achieved their goals. And then after we click the check mark, the score out of a possible 40 will be plotted on a line graph, so you and your client can view the progress from session to session. And I'll show you some of the graphs as we move forward. But so yeah, maybe I'll show you right now. Let's see here. Not sure what happened with my oh, here it is. Okay. So if I had this client do the scales here. Let's say you put individually here, interpersonally there, socially there, overall. Once he clicks the check mark, we'll get a plot on the line graph to show where things are at for him. So that's what it ends up looking like here. These are the scores out of 10, and then this is the score out of 40. And we can sort of see how things have been evolving as time has gone on in our therapeutic relationship here. So then what we do is we discuss trends. So if things are improving, what has been happening that has brought the ratings higher? If things are not improving, what would need to happen in order for things to improve? And then we can compare previous and past session data for each of the life areas, as well as overall scores in various ways. We can wave our mouse over the plot on the graph for specific dates, like I was showing you. We can click compare past session data at the bottom. I'll show you that below the graph, or we can click update past sessions. So if we take a look, we can see these are the dates from the other sessions. And these are the subscale scores individually, interpersonally, socially, and overall. And then if we do the session rating scale, I'll get into more of that as we go, but we can compare past session data down here, and we can do side-by-side comparisons from one session to the next in these different areas. So things going up 5 to 7.2 or 5 to 6, 4 to 5, and whatnot as far as the total goes. We can do that for any of the sessions. We can compare update past sessions. We can take a look at the data from any and all the sessions as far as individually, interpersonally, socially, overall, and then with the SRS, relationship, goals and topics, approach or method, overall, and we can look at the totals as well. So at the end of the session, we would click on SRS. As I showed you, we would explain the SRS to the client and let them know that we value and appreciate their input, their feedback, constructive criticism. We want them to know that they have a voice and that this is their treatment. And we'll have them click on each continuum line again. And before clicking on the check mark, ask them the questions about, what the client liked about the session. What did you like about the session? What they would like more of. Is there something that you would like more of from our sessions? What could improve? in regards to feeling heard, understood, and respected. Is there a way that, you could feel more heard, understood, and respected? What would that look like? Are there things that I can do that would, help facilitate that? Goals and topics. Were there certain things that you wanted to cover that we didn't get to cover? Maybe we should, set out to start with whatever topic it is that you wanted to talk about or that you want to address as we move forward. What was my approach like for you? What is, is it comfortable? Is it, does it seem like a good fit? And then have them click the check mark. Again, the scores will be plotted on a line graph like I showed you. And again, you can note trends. You can compare past session scores if you wish. Again, you can talk about what's been working in regard to the therapy that you're providing, what hasn't been working in regard to the therapy you've been providing. And then as far as other interesting aspects of my outcomes, you can check your provider statistics and get aggregate statistics. It's on the right panel of your homepage. You would just click provider stats and I'll show you that too. But this shows you how you've been doing in regards to your utilization of my outcomes. Average change. So this is from when I was at Spectrum Human Services for 6 years. I don't know if we used my outcomes for the whole time I was there, but it was a lot of sessions and a lot of clients, but the average intake was 25.4 this is for active clients. It breaks it down active and inactive. And then the average most recent ORS went from 25.4 to 28.1. So that was a good increase, but could be better. And the inactive also a good increase from 28.7 to 33.1. Average intake SRS 36.5, so a little higher than the clinical cutoff of 36. For the inactives, they were a little lower. Percentage of clients reaching service targets, the average when it comes to that is 64 to 74%. So I was doing pretty well as far as my clients reaching their service targets. And then it charts how many sessions, average number of sessions per client, and then your total cases. And I'll show you more recently, since I've been in private practice, my provider stats here. So go to provider home, provider stats. So my average intake for active clients for the ORS 21.4. There's effect size, pre-post effect size. This is the effect of treatment compared to no treatment. So anything that's higher than 0 is a good thing, is positive, better than average, better than the norm. It charts average intake SRS 38 out of 40, and then for the inactives, they're a little lower, 36.4. Relative session effect size it compares the most recent ORS score to the expected ORS score for that specific session. So it's basically where they're at relative to where they're predicted to be at this point in treatment. So anything higher than 0 is better than the average. So that's looking pretty good. Percentage, again, looking pretty good of clients reaching target. So this is based on 76 inactive and then 28 active clients. So the expected treatment response, or ETR, is the trajectory of what's expected regarding ratings on the scales as clients move along in treatment. So reaching and exceeding the score is the goal. And on the graphs, it basically plots that out. So your trajectory line is here where you've got the green area, the green zone, you've got the yellow, and you've got the red. So the graph displays the expected treatment response trajectory, as well as the on-track line, off-track line, and at-risk score. So you're on track if you're in the green zone, you're off track if you're in the red zone, you're at risk if you're in the yellow zone. And so this client is progressing nicely as far as the trajectory, above what is expected. Starting pretty low here, below 10, and now is almost up to about a 30. So within 6 sessions, this client has made significant progress. And then when we talk about clinical cutoffs for the ORS and the SRS, which we talked about before, the ORS cutoff for adults is 25. So that's this black line here. That's the line that it means that most adults rating above 25 would not normally be seeking services. And most adults rating below 25 would normally be seeking services. And so when we're talking about gambling, problem gambling clients, mandated clients, substance abuse, addiction clients, a lot of them end up rating things above the clinical cutoff because, they don't necessarily think that there is a problem, or, it's that other people think that there's a problem. And that's where we would bring in the collateral or ask them to rate things how their referring party would rate things for them. But the average adult intake on the ORS is 22. So it's actually pretty close to the clinical cutoff. So most of the time people are, somewhere around 20 if they're self-referred. If things are really bad, it's going to be less than 10, but a lot of times it's going to be around, the 20, 22 mark and that kind of thing. The ORS cutoff for adolescents, 13 to 17 is 28, so higher. So adolescents tend to rate things higher on the ORS. The average adolescent intake for the ORS is 25. And then the Ors cutoff for children school age 6 to 12 is 32. So they're rating things a lot higher. So, it's more often that kids will not necessarily rate things too low. The average child intake for the ORS is actually 28, so it goes up. And then as far as the SRS, the cutoff is the gray line here, and that's 36 for adults, adolescents, and children. And if a client rates the SRS below a 36, that means, they may not be completely satisfied with the session. A conversation should take place about how to bring that rating above the cutoff. And again, we want to have these open-ended questions and these open conversations at the end of the session about how the session went, regardless of how they rate it. If it's higher than 36, which a lot of times it is because clients want to please their therapist, still challenge them, ask them to back it up. What was good about the session? How did you know that I was listening to you, or that I heard you, or that, you were being respected? What was it about, what we covered that you wanted to cover as far as goals and topics? What is it about my approach or method that makes things a good fit for you? How do you know that? How do you know that, we're a good fit? So challenge them. And again, below a 36, still not a bad thing, because they're feeling, they're trusting you enough to, let you know that things weren't perfect. And so, they feel comfortable enough with you to let you know that and to share that. So the graph features and status icons, as far as my outcomes, you can click icons on the graph legend if you want to see the ORS by itself or the SRS by itself. I can show you that, but you can also print the graph if you wish and provide a copy to the client so they can see a visual for progress. This is a great thing to do at discharge, if they've successfully discharged or, moving on and whatnot. On your homepage, all the way to the right of your client info, you find icons with arrows under status. There's green colored icons that indicate that your client is on track toward achieving their expected treatment response. Yellow colored icons indicate that the client is at risk of not achieving the expected treatment response, or ETR. And then red colored icons indicate that your client is off track towards achieving the expected treatment response. So it's pretty clear and easy to sort of organize and see where things are at with your clients in these different areas. Another useful feature is the dashboard, which has case alerts, key performance indicators, utilization, and statistical graphs. So one of the things that I like to do when it comes to using the dashboard is I'd like to look at case alerts would tell you if an ORS is off track. You can filter it by the month or within the last year, within the last week. But if we look at this month and apply There aren't any, so that's a good thing. Last month, there weren't any for that, but within the last year, we had a few that were off track, so we can take a look at that. But then you can do the same thing with ORS at risk. Cases without new ORS or SRS data in the last 6 weeks, sessions skipped, consecutive sessions at or above the target score, key performance indicators, which is kind of nice. I take a look at each month on how things are going with my clients. Average overall raw change. Anything higher than a 5 or a 6 is clinically significant. And average session change, 4.6, that's better than expected. 94% of the clients are scoring in the green zone, so that's definitely a positive. And it has other information as far as things that you can take a look at with that, but statistical graphs, the average intake ORS, the average intake SRS, percentage of clients reaching target. So they're all within the last month reaching their targets. So that's definitely a positive indicator as well. Average number of sessions, different things like that. So there's a lot as far as the dashboard goes. And then there's the client scatter plot graph. So that includes the session numbers and the scores that are on track, off track, and at risk. So this is a chart of the clients that I have actively participating right now. But we can also look at the inactive clients as well and plot both inactive and active. So I can show you that. You can just click view scatter and then include inactive clients. And we can see where things are at as far as they've continued on. They're definitely reaching their goals, but there are some spots here where in the beginning things are, could be rough, could be difficult, but in general, looks like things are progressing in the right direction. So let's see. As far as like pricing and stuff like that for my outcomes itself, this is what they have for like sole providers and stuff like that. But agencies and health authorities, I guess they can get their own quotes, a customized quote. And that includes ongoing training and support, things like that. There's also a mobile app for my outcomes as well. So definitely useful and versatile. So questions, comments, concerns, discussion. What do you guys think about all this? I mean, it's a lot to sort of take in, but we've been working with it for a little bit now.
Adam, I can see the usefulness for our organization for sure as we move forward, you know, and building our treatment system. So I appreciated the information. I know I've missed the last three, but it was helpful just to hear, you know, some options of what's out there and the functionality. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Other thoughts? I know that some of us have started to use FIT in our sessions with our clients. How about going to the next level as far as tracking and reporting outcomes, looking at our clinical effectiveness? Any thoughts about that? Are there barriers that we see or think about when it comes to this? A lot of people say things like it can be time consuming or these kinds of things, but when it comes to reduction in the no-shows, reduction in the cancellation rates, things like that, it opens up more time. It opens up time and it actually helps to manage our caseload. So we have, you know, a lot more facility when it comes to that, kind of thing. So I see people are having sessions and we're basically at the end, at the end here. So I guess I was going to do this scale, but I guess everybody's gone. So Julie, if you care to share on, you know, how the training was for you today. I know it was a lot of info in a brief period, and you weren't here last week, but is it going to be useful to you, helpful?
I mean, I think it's always good to get feedback from the clients on how they feel things are going. I don't know if you talked about the validity of the information that you provided. I don't know if I missed that part.
Okay.
Did you talk about that?
The validity of the information?
You know, the numbers you get and the outcomes and all the things that you talked about.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of it is coming from the research that went into the ORS and the SRS.
Okay.
And I've got that documented in the second training PowerPoint, but
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, a lot of it comes back to that. But there's, yeah, a ton of research behind the effectiveness of, or the value of soliciting, routinely and formally soliciting feedback from your clients, and that leading to improved clinical effectiveness. So, and then tracking and reporting outcomes also improves clinical effectiveness. I can send you some more info as far as that goes, the numbers and everything.
Well, I didn't go through your last PowerPoint, so it probably would have answered some questions.
Yeah, yeah.
see that. But no, I think it's, you know, it is a lot of information, but it's all helpful. So.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here.
Thanks, Adam.